What's up guys, my name is Ace, and yesterday there was apparently a weapon balancing update with Modern Warfare 2, quite a big one by the way. There were a bunch of guns listed in this, and I was fully prepared to give you guys the update on exactly what changed with actual before and after comparisons like I usually do with weapon balancing updates. However, it turns out after testing a bunch of the weapons, I realized nothing had changed. So I think there's one of two things that are potentially happening with this. The first possibility is this just didn't apply properly and nothing actually changed in the game, even though they stated that this update went live and all these changes went in. Or the alternative to that is perhaps these somehow went live in the actual live public match environment without affecting private matches, which is where I have to do all this testing because I can't do all this precise testing in a public match game. I can't reliably get exact damage values in public matches, and I can't be testing ranges to the nearest half meter, for instance, in a public match environment. That's just not viable. So yeah, something is clearly up here, at least for the multiplayer side of things. It is worth noting for the Warzone section, it appears that part of the update went live just fine. I saw True Game Data was doing some testing on this, and there were clearly changes made on the Warzone side of things. But for multiplayer, this either didn't apply, or they've now, for some reason, separated private matches from public matches, which would be a massive pain, because I simply can't give you guys accurate data then. In either case, in today's video, I want to go through these patch notes just in case they did go live in a public match environment, then at least you could maybe be updated on the basics of what changed here. But I want to put that massive disclaimer up front, there's no guarantee these changes actually went live at all. And starting it off with the SMGs, with the mini-BOK they stated they reduced the close damage range as well as the damage amount within close ranges, and that's effectively just the opposite of what they did in a previous update where they buffed the mini-BOK. So I don't know if this was meant to fully revert back to where it was or kind of meet in the middle perhaps, but the mini-BOK was supposed to catch a nerf in this update. Then for the Vaznev 9K, the Lockman Shroud, and the ISO 9mm, these were all meant to have their damage ranges nerfed. Then with the PDSW, the Fennec, and the BAS-P, all of these were meant to have their range values buffed. After that, getting into the assault rifle category, with the TR-76 Geist, they stated they reduced the close damage range, they also reduced the damage value at close range, they reduced arm, leg, and torso damage multipliers, however, they apparently increased the long range damage amount. So overall, this seems like more of a nerf than anything, but at longer ranges, perhaps you're going to maintain some consistency with it. Then with the Kastov 762, they mentioned they increased the close damage range. With the Kastov 74U, they reduced the close damage range, but increased long range damage amount, while also reducing the damage multiplier to the leg. So to me, that sounds like a net nerf to the 74U, although maybe you'll see some more consistency at longer ranges. With the TAC 56, they mentioned they reduced the close damage range. With the FR Avancer, they increased close damage range while also increasing mid and long range damage amounts. So that seems like it would be a couple really nice buffs to the FR Avancer. With the M16, they mentioned they increased the mid damage range. The Tempest Razorback, they increased the close damage range as well as the damage values for mid to long ranges. For the M4, they increased close damage range. And then finally for assault rifles, with the Lockman 556, they mentioned they increased the close and mid damage ranges. So overall, it seems like primarily buffs were going on with the assault rifle category, with a few exceptions there, of course, that were nerfed. Next, let's get into the battle rifles, and they've been buffing up the battle rifles, it seems like, with every update we've been getting, every weapon balancing update. It seems like the battle rifles are getting a little bit better each time. With this, they mentioned the Cronin Squall, the SO14, the Lockman 762, and the FTAC Recon all saw damage range increases. But then let's get into the shotgun category, and with the Lockwood 300, the Bryson 800, although they stated as the 900, there's plenty of spelling errors in these patch notes as well, I wanted to point out. But with those two, as well as the KV broadside, when using the Dragon's Breath ammunition, they mentioned there's a reduction to damage ranges with those. With the Expedite 12, they mentioned an increase to close to mid damage range, which is surprising since that already got a pretty solid buff recently. And they also mentioned with the KV broadside, if you're just using the standard 12 gauge ammo, there was meant to be an increase to close damage range. After that, for the marksman rifle category, they mentioned range nerfs to the EBR-14 and the Tempest Torrent, as well as another range buff to the SPR-208. And then finally, for the weapon balancing that was meant to affect Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer, with the RAL MG, they mentioned an increase to mid to far damage range. And that wraps it up for all of the weapon balancing that was stated in these patch notes. Again, I don't have any evidence that these updates actually went through, and I can't reliably test it in public matches, but these definitely didn't apply to private matches. On top of this though, there's also a pretty good list of bug fixes mainly applying to things that came with the haunting event. So specific issues with haunting content like incorrect audio playing for various actions, or certain placeholder images popping up when they weren't meant to be popping up and we're supposed to have the final image there. Unfortunately, they weren't super specific with this, and I don't recall seeing any of these bugs because I've barely been touching Modern Warfare 2 lately, so I can't even really confirm that these bugs were fixed because I've never experienced them in the first place and don't know exactly how to replicate them. But I did want to point out there were apparently a good handful of bug fixes here as well. Nearly all of them were just UI elements, although they did mention, as far as gameplay goes, they fixed an issue preventing split screen from functioning properly. And they also mentioned they fixed an issue that would cause that red indicator, the little diamond above enemies' heads, to not display properly on some night maps. They didn't even specify which maps they're talking about, like is it just Black Gold, the NVG map, or maybe other maps that are set at night, like the new version of Embassy for the haunting event. I don't really know because they didn't specify here, and I don't recall ever experiencing this bug. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for the patch notes for yesterday's apparent update. Unfortunately, I don't really have any reliable method of confirming that any of this actually applied to the game. We do know, at least on the Warzone side of things, the things that were stated for Warzone did actually change in Warzone, but not on the multiplayer side. And this is a really confusing one. I've never really seen anything like this before. I've seen plenty of instances of like hidden updates where they sneak in changes that they neglect to mention in patch notes. But I don't think I've ever seen a patch where literally the entire weapon balancing portion of the patch just didn't seem to apply, or perhaps only applied to public matches and not private matches. Up until this point, there has been full parity in the weapon stats between private matches and public matches, but that may no longer be the case, or something else screwed up and things just didn't apply here. Now, I don't know if they're breaking things here because they're just prepping for the integration with Modern Warfare 3 since all of these weapons are transferring over, or maybe they're just getting a little bit careless as they're prepping for the new game, because I'm sure that most of the focus at this point is on the new game that's coming up and that final crunch time, especially with all studios pitching in. But in either case, I don't believe these patch notes can be trusted for Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer. However, I want to hear from you guys, just in those comments down below. For those of you guys that have been playing Modern Warfare 2, have you tried out any of these guns that were mentioned in the patch notes to have changed? And if so, do you at least feel like these changes went through? Like if they stated there was a nerf to a gun, are you noticing that nerf? Or vice versa, if they stated there's a buff, have you noticed that those guns feel a bit more powerful? I know just going based off of feel isn't a reliable method of confirming this, especially since the changes in this were mainly just range or damage reductions, and those can be especially subtle. Like if they change the range by 2 meters, for instance, it's going to be pretty difficult to say with confidence that it definitely changed. But I'm still curious to know if you guys have noticed any different feel with any of the guns that were mentioned in this patch. If you enjoyed this video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.